Hey everybody, so today we are talking about the Pope and D.Gray, man, a character who's barely been referenced, but as we wait for more chapters, I kind of want to talk about theories and some of the characters that I feel like will play more of a role in the endgame. I was working on making an Apocryphus video and looking up, getting all the details in order for that, when I realized he's a cardinal of the church. And we don't really get to see much of the church actually interacting. We know following the headquarters move, they're more in the story and they're more referenced, but it begs so many questions of what role will the Pope have in the story moving forward. And he's a character who we haven't even been formally introduced to in a panel yet. He's been referenced, though, in 3 different occasions, so I'm going to start by talking about those occasions and the repercussions of them, and then ultimately at the end go to theories. If you want to just jump to my theory section or whatever, feel free. But I guess we're diving into the Pope. So I feel like the first thing that's important to note is we don't exactly know the exact ranking of where the Pope stands. Like, we know obviously head bishop of the Catholic Church. We know that it's seemingly implied that the great generals of the Black Order, which are the leaders of Black Order, are actually just like puppets of the church. So he's obviously above any member of the Black Order, but also we know that the heart is in play as well as Apocryphus. Does Apocryphus have to stand down if the Pope ordered him to? Does the Pope even know that Apocryphus is the cardinal he is pretending to be? So all these kind of questions are stuff that I feel like could be answered later, and maybe also just simply, is the Pope an accommodator of a specific type of innocence that's super special? The heart? I doubt it's the heart, but I'll get into that more in the theory section. But first, just to kind of go through the events he's been in, was he was first mentioned when Levier appeared and is like judging Alan to say that he is going to decide the fate on Alan, and Kamui asks like, "Oh, did the Pope decide this?" And Levier decides to avoid the question. So we don't even know if the Pope was involved in that, but the Pope was first mentioned at that point. Obviously, though, the actions that he actually does are the following two, where the first one being that when the third exorcists are successfully created, following the whole Akuma factory arc and picking some of the crows like Madarao, um, Toxa, etc., the 5 of them, into becoming half Akumas who can defeat Akumas, it was the Pope who agreed to put them into action as these new exorcists or third exorcists, ultimately leading up to the Alma Karma arc, and then they're taken back and now they're on the Earl's side. So honestly, that one didn't really work out that well for him, but it's not his fault, I guess. It is, because he kind of forsook his own beliefs, where the Earl literally calls him out to say, we picked our sides, we chose our gods, you can't just willy-nilly pick mine. So honestly, it's a weird choice, but I understand they wanted to win the war, and Akumas are always multiplying, and there's only a set number of exorcists based on the number of shards of innocence out there, as well as some of them get destroyed by the Noahs, where Akumas continuously multiply. There's even people who call in to let the Earl know that someone who's a good candidate to summon Akuma is there. Anyways, the last thing that he has done in the story so far is following Alan and the Noah meeting Apocryphus and fleeing. He is the one who officially revokes Alan's right as an exorcist and says he's no longer one. While the 14th was in him prior and he still was an exorcist while they were investigating, he was technically no longer an exorcist following this event, and for them to search and capture him. So with all of that said, now the story kind of picks up where we are right now, and Apocryphus is still in the story, and we see so much with him. This is where we're getting to kind of theories with the Pope. I think the Pope will play a role in the final war arc, which will eventually come in years from now, because it's just too important of a character. Now, what exactly does the Pope know? And this is something I briefly mentioned earlier in this video, but we don't know. Do I believe that the Pope is the heart of innocence? It could track naturally being the highest position, but I find it hard to believe just because the Noah have struggled so hard to find the heart. They've struggled so hard to find Apocryphus. That was like something Keeley mentioned. They were like, we couldn't find you for the longest time. The key to finding the heart is the human type innocence Apocryphus. So if it was simply the Pope, while I understand the Pope is realistically heavily guarded, potentially by a few exorcists plus a bunch of crows and maybe anything else that they're hiding that we haven't been privy to as the audience yet, it feels like the Noah would have made an attempt to attack had they have thought that the Pope was actually the heart. So for that reason alone, I think that he probably isn't. But the question is really, does he know who the heart is? And that, I would say maybe. So it's the type of information that I don't actually think matters for the Pope to know unless the heart is literally instructing the whole Vatican. Because if the heart is like fully in charge of everything, which it could be, the Pope would follow the heart's orders, and then ultimately for that they'd have to know, or he'd just have to know that the cardinal is Apocryphus, and then Apocryphus gives the orders to the Pope when they're meeting, and then so on and so forth. The Pope then relays that to the exorcist, everybody else in the church, and then ultimately that's how it functions. So while I don't think that he's necessarily in line with the heart so much so that he knows everything, I wouldn't be surprised if he is an exorcist, if he has at least like knowledge of what Apocryphus and the heart's endgame is, even if he doesn't know who they are, because he could just be a liability against the Noah, or if he's just the strongest exorcist in the world. I don't think any of these are far-fetched. I also would like to see, like, when that final war happens, that he's actually leading the fight to some extent, because the exorcists are kind of known as the army of the Pope. But anyways, that's kind of where this is, and I know this is a shorter video for my standards, but we really don't have that much to go on here. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the Pope, if you think that he will be in the story more, if he's just like naturally there as the head of the structure, but naturally the heart is higher or lower. Would the Pope have to, would Apocryphus have to argue with the Pope if he wanted to attempt to do something, or does he get free reign? Anyways, there's a bunch of stuff here, and I feel like if we do get more with the Pope, which I believe we will, because of how important they are in the overall landscape of just the church in general, I could make a part 2 to this video as we look back at some of these theories, but for now, that's all we know. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments section, and if you like this video and want more of these D.Gray Man like individual videos outside my chapter reviews, please let me know in the comments section, and like and subscribe. Thank you.